A few weeks ago, I made a video about the lowest ranked teams to ever play in the FA Cup competition proper. And as I followed that up with the lowest ranked teams to have made the second round, I thought why not make it a series? So here's episode 3, where I'm going to talk about the lowest ranked teams to ever play in the famous FA Cup third round. With the first round it was all 9th tier teams, and with the second round it was all 8th tier sides, so this one's going to be a little bit different. As only 2 of the 8th tier teams mentioned in my last video progressed to the third round, I'm going to also include 7th tier sides, otherwise it would be a very short video. And to be honest, even with the 7th tier teams included, it's still a much shorter list than my previous 2 videos, which just goes to show how difficult an achievement this is for non-league clubs. With 9th and 10th tier teams only being granted access from the 1998-99 season, it was quite straightforward to figure out who the first round's lowest ranked sides were. But with 7th and 8th tier teams playing in the competition for decades before the changes, this was a much more difficult list to put together. So difficult in fact, with the constant renaming, restructuring and rebranding of leagues, that it was almost impossible to keep track of. Especially as even Wikipedia stops giving out that information once you go back further than the 1990s. So to keep it simple, I'm only going to be taking this list back as far as the 1998-99 season. I'm going to go through them in order, which means I'm starting all the way back in 2004-2005 with Yeading. Yeading Football Club may no longer exist since their merger with Hayes back in 2007, but just a few years earlier they'd become the first team from England's 7th tier to ever play in the FA Cup third round. At least since the formation of the National League North and South anyway. Yeading had made the competition proper on 2 occasions prior to that season, taking Gillingham and Colchester United to first round replays in 1993 and 1994 respectively, before producing their best ever run in the competition 10 years later. They won 4 qualifying matches before being given favourable draws in rounds 1 and 2 against fellow non-league clubs Hales Owen and Slough Town, before drawing Premier League giants Newcastle United at home in the third round. In the past, teams were allowed to reverse the tie, but recently that rule was changed, meaning they couldn't play at St James's Park, but they were allowed to switch the tie to a local neutral ground, so that tie was played at Queen's Park Rangers Loftus Road. And the Isthmian League Premier Division side produced a performance to be proud of. With 6 leagues between them, they were beaten 2-0 by the Magpies, which isn't a disgrace by any means. Yeading did make it to the first round proper once more before their merge, and drew another massive tie when they were drawn away to Nottingham Forest, where they lost 5-0. Since their merge, Hayes and Yeading have reached the first round of the FA Cup on a number of occasions, but haven't managed to progress any further than that. They have dropped down a tier into the Isthmian League South Central, which sits in England's 8th tier, but they're currently in a very tight playoff race involving about 6 different teams. Hayes and Yeading's SkyX Community Stadium has a capacity of 3,000, where they're currently averaging between 200 to 300, which isn't bad considering they suffered relegation from the Southern League Premier Division South last season.
Amiobi. Well, steps around the defender, some space for Amiobi. Slipped across, Boyer's there! Taps it in! Laid across, the header, there it is! Shola Amiobi has put an end to the Yeading dreams.
Are Chasetown supporters getting fed up of me talking about their club? I guarantee that they're not. After being one of the only 9th tier teams to ever play in the FA Cup first round a couple of seasons earlier, Chasetown became the first team from England's 8th tier to play in the third round. And their cup run is probably the most well known of recent years. Even though Marine matched their achievement a few seasons ago, Chasetown were the first team to do it, and that can never be taken away from them. Chasetown played 6 qualifying matches, including a replay against Cambridge City, before beating Team Bath in the first round and stunning Port Vale at Vale Park, where they came away with a draw and earned a replay. They went one better in that replay, beating Vale 1-0 to set up a third round home tie against Cardiff City. And they were even ahead in that third round match for 28 minutes after a Kevin McNaughton owned goal in the 17th minute. And it took the Championship side until right on half-time to equalise through Peter Whittingham, and then Cardiff City's quality shone through in the second half. Aaron Ramsey and Paul Parry scored to give Cardiff a 3-1 win, but with 6 divisions separating the sides, Chasetown did themselves proud, making history in the process. Chasetown are still playing in England's 8th tier in the Northern Premier League Division 1 West, where they're currently in 5th place with a great chance of making the playoffs. Maybe we'll see them playing at a higher level again next season. Their Scholars Ground holds 3,000 and they're averaging crowds of over 500, though they did have 2,700 there on New Year's Day this year when they played Hednesford Town in the league. That's incredible support for that level of the game. Chasetown is a club that's high on my list of places to visit next season, so I'll definitely be making the trip, and it sounds like a brilliant club. Nottinghamshire-based Eastwood Town have had their fair share of ups and downs in the last 20 to 30 years. The Badgers enjoyed a rise to the National League North in the late 2000s before falling right down to the Northern Premier League First Division after back-to-back relegations in 2012 and 13. It was just before this incredible rise that Eastwood Town produced their best FA Cup performance ever. In the 2008-2009 season, they played 6 qualifying matches, including replays against Harrogate Town and Wrexham, now both of the Football League, before beating Brackley Town in the first round, then shocking Wycombe Wanderers in the second. In the third round, they were given a favourable tie, or you could say unfavourable, as the likes of Manchester United and Chelsea were on offer. They were drawn away to Kettering Town. Sadly, the Nottingham-based side weren't able to go any further, losing 2-1 at Kettering, who went on to play Fulham in the fourth round. To follow up that impressive FA Cup run, Eastwood were promoted to the Conference North after winning the Northern Premier League title, and in their second season in England's 6th tier, they finished 4th, but weren't allowed to take part in the playoffs due to ground grading issues. Instead of paying to upgrade their Coronation Park Stadium, the owners put the club up for sale, which began their demise. After the back-to-back relegations I mentioned earlier and unpaid tax bills looming, Eastwood Town were liquidated in 2014. It was only a matter of months before Eastwood had a football club again though. Eastwood Community were formed in 2014 and immediately joined the Central Midlands League. They've won 2 promotions since their formation and currently play in the United Counties League Premier Division, where they're involved in a promotion race, so they could be about to achieve their 3rd promotion in their short history. Eastwood Community still play at the Coronation Park Stadium, which has a capacity of 5,000, and this season they've been getting average crowds ranging from 100 to over 600 in a recent game against Lincoln United. As I'm based so close to Eastwood, I'll be paying them a visit next season, regardless of which league they'll be playing in.
Eastwood Town, the lowest ranking club left in the competition, were at Kettering. This was the match which guaranteed a non-league presence in round 4. Unibond League side Eastwood had begun their FA Cup run way back in mid-September. Under manager Paul Cox, they'd beaten League 2 leaders Wycombe in the second round. But from the start it was Kettering of the Blue Square Premier who were on the front foot. They took the lead when Richard Graham found an unmarked Craig West car. And before half-time they thought they'd scored again. Gareth Seddon denied by an offside flag. But he soon got his chance to make amends. Having missed 18 months of football earlier in his career because of a blood disorder, Seddon's now making up for lost time by scoring goals for Kettering. There was no chance Eastwood would go quietly, of course, and in front of well over 1,000 of their own travelling fans, they made the most of some hesitant home defending, and Paul Robinson gave the game a nail-biting finish. Kettering held on, though, to take their place in round 4. Eastwood's cup run was over after no fewer than 9 games. Mark Cooper's team, on the other hand, can dream of a plum draw tomorrow.
Isthmian League Premier Division side Hastings United have a rich history in the FA Cup, though they were called Hastings Town before 2002. Hastings Town made it to the 3rd round twice in the 1950s, even taking Norwich City to a replay in 1954, but then they had to wait almost 60 years to repeat that achievement. In the 2012-13 season, Hastings United played 5 qualifying matches, including a replay against Hitchin Town, before beating Bishop Stortford in the first round and overcoming Harrogate Town on penalties in a second round replay. In the 3rd round, they were drawn away at Middlesbrough's Riverside Stadium, where they put in a great performance but eventually lost 4-1 to the Championship side. They went in 1-0 down at half-time but had a goal disallowed and largely matched the team playing 5 leagues above them, but Middlesbrough's quality showed in the second half. Hastings United supporters will always remember Bradley Goldberg's long-range strike and the penalty save from backup goalkeeper Liam O'Brien. Hastings United did drop into the Isthmian League First Division for a few seasons, but they've been playing in the Premier Division ever since their promotion in 2022, where they won the First Division title. Their pilot field holds 4,050, including 800 seats, and it looks like a really nice stadium to be hosting 7th tier football. And they regularly see crowds of over 1,000, which is great support. Though it does look like the club are about to drop back into the Isthmian First Division with relegation imminent, so let's hope they can bounce back again.
Middlesbrough were the heavy favourites to defeat Hastings United. The Ryman Premier League side were the lowest ranked in the competition, and with a massive 131 places separating the two teams, the Championship side were expected to ease through. The non-leaguers started nervously, and when Jamie Krellin upended Ishmael Miller in the box, the travelling faithful must have feared the worst. But a reprieve of sorts as Miller's tame spot kick was saved by Liam O'Brien, a man who was drafted in late on for the injured regular keeper Matt Armstrong-Ford. Sadly for the Arrows, 5 minutes later, Marouane Zamama curled an unstoppable shot past the helpless O'Brien. It was the Moroccan's first FA Cup goal, doubling his tally for the season. Hastings are the draw specialists, 6 from their last 6, and they responded well, coming close to earning parity. Lee Carey's floated free kick wasn't cleared, and Crellin's shot was deflected wide. United went close again to claiming what would have been a famous equaliser. Bradley Goldberg raced through and rounded Jason Steele. Play was halted, though, for an extremely marginal offside decision. It was a harsh call, and at the beginning of the second period, the game started to slip away. Luke Williams' corner poked home by Andy Halliday. Still, Hastings pressed. Carey shot from distance, forcing Steele into a smart save. The Borough stopper just knocking the ball onto the post. Then Zamama again punished the South Coast side. His speculative long-range effort deflecting past O'Brien. And Borough were coasting, making amends for last season's shock defeat to League Two Burton. But from the kick-off, United finally got the goal they so sorely craved. Goldberg picking the ball up in the middle of the park before unleashing an incredible drive. Almost fittingly, just over 1066 travelling supporters, 1068 to be exact, went wild. Goldberg's strike, perhaps not as famous as the battle, but providing a moment to savour. Borough went on and notched a fourth as they safely went through. Miller getting his second, a neat curling finish from the edge of the box. 4-1 Middlesbrough, Hastings' excellent run at an end, but with pride very much intact.
The FA's website describes Blyth Spartans as something of a legend when it comes to FA Cup giant killings, and that's hard to argue. They've reached the first round on 32 occasions, even making it as far as the 5th round in 1978, where they eventually lost to Wrexham in a replay, but they knocked out Stoke City and Chesterfield en route. I need to do a little more research into Blyth Spartans to see what level of the game they were playing at during their historic FA Cup successes, but in the 2014-15 season they were in England's 7th tier, playing in the Northern Premier League. They played 5 qualifying matches, including taking local rivals Darlington to a replay in the first qualifying round, then knocked out Altrincham and Hartlepool United before being drawn at home to Birmingham City in the 3rd round. And the Championship club were almost made to regret bringing a weakened team to the North East. Robbie Dale scored twice in 6 first-half minutes to give Spartans a shock 2-0 half-time lead, but Birmingham City scored 3 goals in their own 6-minute spell at the start of the second half to avoid a shock after a huge scare. 7th tier Blyth Spartans were looking for only their 2nd appearance in the FA Cup 4th round in their history, but it wasn't to be. Blyth Spartans are having a bit of a troubled time at the moment. They were in the National League North as recently as last season, but have been relegated from the Northern Premier League in their first season back at England's 7th tier for almost a decade. It looks like there are a number of financial issues at the club at present, so I hope they can turn things around. This club was formed all the way back in 1899, so there's a lot of history to be maintained. I plan to visit their Croft Park Stadium at some point over the next 12 months. It holds almost 4,500 and looks like a really nice ground. Plus it has so much history, including many FA Cup shocks over the years. Despite the dreadful season, Blyth Spartans are still pulling in crowds between 400 and 1,000, which goes to show just how well this club is supported, and I really hope they sort themselves out.
Birmingham's corner. Zigic, the obvious target. He's put the ball in the net, but the whistle's already gone here. Some shoving in the middle. Mike Jones says foul. Dale pushed over. Blyth Spartans, the lowest ranked club left in this competition. And on the back foot here, thanks to a strong run from Novak, who's found Zigic! Oh dear, what a waste that was. They enjoyed that, Croft Park, the home fans. What a miss from Nikola Zigic. He pulled off his man and found the space. He did that. Here comes Hawkins going for glory. The ricochet falls for Rivers. His crosses hit Duffy, who's hooked it clear. Rivers has got it back here. That's a good run. And a confident run, and he's still going. Jarrett Rivers, Robbie Dale! Blyth Spartans are at it again. It's another FA Cup story in the making here, and another FA Cup goal for Robbie Dale. 6 and 6, and for this one, he wants to say a big thank you to Jarrett Rivers for all the hard work. The finish is an easy one, and the shock is on at Croft Park. Free kick is a short one to Robbie Dale, who's bought himself a bit of room here. Robbie Dale, he's done it again! Unbelievable! 2 goals in 6 minutes. Dreamland for Tom Ward and for Robbie Dale. And Blyth Spartans are 2 up here. 120 places beneath their guests, and they're 2 up, right through the gap. Six divisions apart, remember, these two. The half isn't over yet. It's a hopeful ball up from Maguire, and Morrison's made a mess of it. And this is Maguire, surely not 3. Well, Birmingham do have plenty of time. There is that in the second half. Here's Lee Novak. Novak goes for goal and finds it. 2-1. Exactly what Birmingham needed, an early second half goal, and that has changed the mood. They still trail, but Lee Novak's first of the season will put Blyth Spartans on edge for sure, and it's an awfully long time to try and protect a single goal lead. Header up to Zigic, now helped on for Thomas. He's got the pace. Oh, and he's got the finish as well. That's brilliant. And just like that, this cup tie's all square. Wes Thomas had the pace to beat Hutchinson and the finish to beat Jeffries. 2 goals in 3 minutes for Birmingham. And they'll feel a whole lot better now. Here comes the corner. It's away by Turnbull, and back in again. There's still plenty forward, including Thomas. 2 goals in 3 minutes for Wes Thomas, 3 goals in 6 minutes for Birmingham, and this tie has turned right around. No more the Birmingham nightmare. It's Blythe's dreams that are turning sour. Robbie Dale, it's almost now or never. In comes the corner. Parker round the back with the header just wide, and Birmingham fans breathe a huge sigh of relief.
Stourbridge are another old club with a lot of history. They reached the first round of the FA Cup for the first time in their history back in 2009, where they were beaten by Walsall. Then, over the course of the next 6 seasons, they reached the second round on 3 occasions, losing to Stevenage twice, then Eastleigh, before finally making it to the third round in the 2016-17 season. Stourbridge played 4 qualifying matches before beating fellow non-league club Whitehawk in a first round replay. They stunned Northampton Town in the second round before being drawn away at Wycombe's Adams Park in their first ever third round tie. Being drawn away to a League Two side when there are Premier League clubs in the draw isn't ideal, but after beating Northampton they would have seen Wycombe as beatable. And Stourbridge played so well. A second half equaliser looked like it had secured a replay, but Adebayo Akinfenwa's late goal broke Stourbridge hearts and ended their best ever FA Cup run. To make that late defeat even more difficult to take, Wycombe were then drawn away to Tottenham in round 4, which would have easily been the biggest game in Stourbridge history. Stourbridge did make the first round again in 2020, but were once again beaten by Eastleigh, though this time they lost in a replay. Stourbridge are still playing in England's 7th tier in the Southern League Premier Division Central and are sitting comfortably in the middle of a very tight league, which could have easily seen them pulled into a relegation battle. They have been switched from the Southern to the Northern League a couple of times in recent years due to their location, but they've played in England's 7th tier for the best part of 2 decades. Their War Memorial Athletic Ground holds just over 2,000 and they're getting crowds of 500 plus consistently this season. I won't make it to Stourbridge before the end of this season, but I'm covering one of their local rivals, Bromsgrove Sporting, this weekend, but I'm definitely aiming to visit the War Memorial Ground next season.
Wycombe Wanderers have slain a few giants in this competition over the years, but in 2017 they were the bigger name, hoping to avoid an upset. Their guests on round 3 Saturday were the lowest ranked club left, Stourbridge of the 7th tier. The Northern Premier side more than held their own for most of the tie and had the first good chance of it. Caeldon Brown with an improvised effort that was kept out by the busier keeper on the day, Wycombe's Jamal Blackman. Much more of him later. Wycombe's first chance was a pretty clear one. Scott Cashkett racing onto the loose ball, but it was a disappointing finish from the man who'd bagged a hat-trick at Chesterfield in round 2. There are nearly 24 Chelsea loanees playing down the various English leagues this season, and a fair few have begun to make a name for themselves. Undoubtedly amongst that number is the aforementioned Blackman. His next save stopped Dan Scarr making a name for himself, for a while anyway. After the break, Wycombe did their best to assert the authority we'd all presumed they'd assert from kick-off. Sam Wood had come off the home bench right at the end of the first half. Right at the start of the second, he scored the game's opening goal. Having run half the length of the field and seen his shot well parried by Matt Gould, he hung around long enough to produce a tidy finish to end a scrappy few seconds in the Stourbridge box. Far from crumbling though, Stourbridge got themselves level with 20 to play. Scrappiness in the home box this time, and Dan Scarr reignited dreams of fairy tales for the Midlands club. Stourbridge knocked out Northampton in round 2 just to be here. They did it with an 86th minute winner, and they so nearly stole another memorable late victory in this tie too. But for the very faintest of fingertips from the giant Blackman, they may well have been celebrating a truly famous upset. Tom Tonks denied giant-killing superstar status. Whatever the level, the margins are so often so very fine. Instead, the decisive goal came at the other end with just 7 left of the 90, courtesy of Wycombe's resident beast, Adi Akinfenwa. A fine header from the big man, from Joe Jacobson's equally fine cross. Huge relief for the Chair boys and heartbreak for the Glass boys. Their overall performance had more than merited a replay, but it wasn't to be. Wycombe through to round 4 for the first time in 16 years. They went all the way to the semi-finals that season.
The last team on this list were also mentioned in my last video, 8th tier side Marine, who famously reached the third round in the 2020-21 season. While playing in the Northern Premier League Division 1 North West, Marine played 5 qualifying matches, which included a shock win over Chester in the 4th qualifying round. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, replays were scrapped that season, and Marine benefited from that rule change by beating Colchester United on penalties in the first round. They then beat National League South side Haventon Waterlooville in the second round before being given a dream tie in the third, a home game with Jose Mourinho's Tottenham. Marine were predictably outplayed in that 5-0 loss, but did nearly take the lead when a long-range strike almost caught out Joe Hart in the visiting goal. Gareth Bale also played that day, so Marine's part-timers really were taking on some of the best players in the country, and that afternoon will never be forgotten. Since that season, Marine have enjoyed a rise to the National League North, and in their first season in England's 6th tier they've stayed up comfortably, which is a great achievement considering the increasing gap between the 6th and 7th tiers. Marine's Rosette Park has a capacity of 2,300, and this season they're consistently getting crowds of well over 1,000, and they even got close to capacity on Boxing Day when Chester came to visit. I'm going to try and get up to Crosby when Hereford play their next season, and it'll be a new one for me. So those are the lowest ranked teams to ever play in the third round of the FA Cup, at least since the creation of the National League North and South. I'm aware that I've probably missed a few, but it's very difficult to verify that information going back so far into the competition's history. Chasetown United and Whitley Bay are two examples of 7th tier teams in the FA Cup third round in the late 70s and 80s, but I'll need to check that that information is correct. So there is potential for a follow-up video in the future. Let me know in the comments what you want to see next. Subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed this video, and why not check out my Road to Wembley series. It's on screen right now, and I'm headed to Wembley Stadium next weekend to watch the semi-final between Nottingham Forest and Manchester City. Thanks for watching.